Hey guys, welcome back to It Came From the 80's, the series here on Top 5 Scary where we do a deep dive into some of the greatest horror movies from the decade and examine what exactly made them so good. Today we are discussing The Fly, but before we do that, be sure to stick around until the end of the video where I'll be responding to some of your comments. And with that, let's jump into It Came From the 80's, The Fly. Released in 1986, The Fly is a science fiction body horror movie directed and co-produced by the legendary filmmaker David Cronenberg, and is loosely based on George Langeland's 1957 short story of the same name. The film tells the story of an eccentric scientist who, after one of his experiments goes wrong, slowly turns into a fly hybrid creature. Not the best case scenario. The film stars a stellar cast including Jeff Goldblum, Gina Davis, John Getz, and even Cronenberg himself. Production first kicked off in the early 1980s when co-producer Kip Oman approached screenwriter Charles Edward Pogue with an idea of remaking the classic science fiction horror film The Fly, which had been released all the way back in the 50s. The pair moved forward, writing an initial screenplay and approaching Cronenberg, who was no longer associated with Total Recall, in turn making him available. He loved the idea and agreed to sign on as a director if he would be allowed to rewrite the script. And that he did, and I think we're all very happy about that decision. But let's talk creature design and makeup, the reason we're all here. The Academy Award winning makeup was designed and executed by Chris Wallace over a period of just 3 months. He first designed the final stage of the Brundlefly before filling in the gaps needed to carry protagonist Seth Brundle to that final incarnation. Now, what most folks might not know is that the transformation was intended to be a metaphor for the aging process. Something I didn't even know. So, saying that Brundle loses his hair, teeth, and fingernails, with his skin becoming discolored and lumpy over time. The general intention was to give Brundle a bruised and cancerous look that gets progressively worse, with the final Brundlefly hybrid creature literally bursting out of Brundle's hideously deteriorated human skin. More interesting still, the transformation process was broken up into 7 distinct stages, with Jeff Goldblum spending many hours in the makeup chair. And I'm gonna break down those stages right now. Stage 1 and 2, subtle rash-like skin discoloration that leads to facial lesions and sores, with many fly hairs dotting Goldblum's face, in addition to the patch of fly hairs growing out of the wound on Brundle's back. Stages 3 and 4A, piecemeal prosthetics covering Goldblum's face, wigs with bald spots, and crooked prosthetic teeth. Stage 4B, deleted from the film, this variant of Stage 4 was seen only in the monkey cast scene, and required Goldblum to wear the first of 2 full body foam latex suits, as Brundle has stopped wearing clothing at this point. Stage 5, the second full body suit with more exaggerated deformities, and which also required Goldblum to wear distorting contact lenses that made one eye look larger than the other. Stage 6, the final Brundlefly creature depicted by various partial and full body cable and rod controlled puppets. Stage 7, another puppet, which represented the mortally injured Brundlefly telepod fusion creature as seen in the film's final moments. How cool is that? Insane, right? Upon release, unlike a lot of horror movies that hailed from the 80's, aka a lot of the films we've covered on this series so far, the movie was instantly critically acclaimed, with most of the praise going to Goldblum's performance and of course the special effects department. The film in turn was a commercial success and the biggest of Cronenberg's career. Another surprise, with the movie being the top grossing film in the United States for 2 weeks, earning a total domestic gross of $40 million. Of course, like many others, Cronenberg was surprised at the success of The Fly, and the acclaim handed to it by critics, with the film even being seen by some critics as a cultural metaphor for AIDS, since he originally intended the film to be a more general analogy for disease itself, terminal conditions like cancer, and more specifically the aging process. I quote, "If you or your lover has AIDS, you watch that film, and of course you'll see AIDS in it, but you don't have to have that experience to respond emotionally to the movie, and I think that's really its power. This is not to say that AIDS didn't have an incredible impact on everyone, and of course after a certain point people were seeing AIDS stories everywhere, so I don't take any offense that people see that in my movie. For me though, there was something about the Fly story that was much more universal. Aging and death, something all of us have to deal with." On top of that, the quote, quote, "Be afraid, be very afraid" was also used as the film's marketing tagline, and became so ingrained in pop culture that a large number of people had no idea that it's affiliated with the movie. The film holds a 92% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes, with the consensus reading, I quote, "David Cronenberg combines his trademark affinity for gore and horror with strongly developed characters, making The Fly a surprisingly affecting tragedy." Not too shabby. In 2005, Time magazine film critics Roger Carlis and Richard Schickel included The Fly in their list of the all-time 100 greatest movies, with Time later naming it one of the 25 best horror films of all time. The Fly was such a success at the time, it was nominated for a slew of awards, including Best Makeup, Best Dramatic Presentation, Best Actor, Best Actress, Best Horror Film, and of course, Best Directing. Now, there was a sequel, which I really don't want to talk about because it was a complete and utter train wreck, with Cronenberg having no involvement whatsoever in the project. Now, I'm sure a lot of people would disagree with me, considering the impact it had on the Fly series as a whole, but I'm sticking by my point. Then in March 2015, IDW Publishing released a 5-issue comic book miniseries titled The Fly Outbreak, written by Brandon Seifert, with the story being a direct sequel to the events of The Fly 2, and features Seth Brundle's son, Martin, inadvertently causing transgenic outbreak while attempting to cure Anton Bartok, to whom he'd previously transferred his mutant genes at the end of The Fly 2. So, I guess if you want to read it, you have to watch The Fly 2. I'm sorry. All in all, David Cronenberg may be one of the greatest contemporary auteurs of our time, with The Fly being by far one of the most influential horror movies, as well as one of the most successful. It's a remarkable body horror that shows off groundbreaking special effects that deservedly won numerous Oscars, and Cronenberg does, as Seth Brundle suggests, "I build bodies, I take them apart and put them back together again." Ain't that the truth? The Fly is Cronenberg's most embossed work, offering up a terrifying possibility: the body revolting against the mind, with the mind unable to assemble the control. So damn chilling. Well, there we have it. Do you guys agree with our video? What horror movies from the 80s do you want us to cover next on It Came From the 80s? Leave us all your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below. Before I go though, I just want to respond to a few comments from one of our last videos. Top 5 worst horror movie sequels of all time, part 2. 1 million subscribers with one video said, "Haven't seen the video yet, but I already know Troll 2 is going to be on the list." And you would be right, you guys demanded it and I fulfilled your wishes. You're welcome. No one likes Troll 2. The Dank Savage said, "I'd like to see Ash from the Evil Dead open the Hellraiser box in Camp Crystal Lake while dreaming." That's a crossover none of us could possibly prepare for, but I'm here for it. Completely here for it. Super Rockstar said, "Seriously, you look good as Pinhead. Like really good." Excuse me? That's an insult. Darkblade said, "Women who like Hellraiser do exist. I mean, there are women out there who love horror. Maybe I'm a rare breed. Who is a sucker for the Hellraiser franchise? I don't think so. I think everyone loves Hellraiser. It's amazing." And on that note, if you haven't already, be sure to give this video a big thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another scary vid. And until next time, see you later.